You're live now.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to be with us in this journey and for me to continue my story and Vince to be here to support me and work with me. So I look forward to being with all of you today. We're hoping that we have this set up that if you have any questions or comments that you can certainly send them and can maybe respond on live. So I want to start this morning with just an opening of clearing the energy. This is another way of smudging. I have what's called a Palo Santo stick, and I'm going to light it. I've already smudged the room, which is important to me that I smudge it, and I've called in the directions. Get this going, which it's not going to do. Let's see if I can get this one. I'm trying to light the Palo Santo stick, if you're wondering what's going on here. There we go. So as you can see, there's a little bit of smoke here. And the smoke is about clearing any unwanted energies that may be surrounding any of you during this time of this chat. If you're listening to it live or if you are listening to it in a recording, knowing the smoke can help clear your energy and any energies that may be attached to your aura. For those of you that are listening to this, know that you are light workers. And when you are a light worker, there's an attraction of those that are not so much connected to their light. So they will be attracted to you and want to cling on. And so they'll attach to your aura. They cannot enter your body, but they can certainly attach to your aura and create havoc in your life. So to me, part of the ceremony that I do is that every day I light a candle or I light sage or Palo Santo, incense even, and that's a way to start my opening of my time of my spiritual practice. So the other thing that I want to do is I want to share with you from a book. It's the Book of Awakening. And we did this in our Vision Quest group the other day on Sunday. And it's very simple and very powerful. So we ask that if you are listening to this, maybe do it later, but that you get a glass of water. And the reason that we ask that you have this, I'm going to start out with the reading, part of the reading from this. To hold nothing back in every breath is a spiritual practice. To hold nothing back in every breath means staying committed to letting whatever we experience make its way in and letting whatever is in make its way out. Holding nothing back means holding the intention to be an open vessel in a daily way. So just think about that. Holding nothing back and allowing what's in to make its way out so that you can remember that you are an open vessel every day. So the practice, which is very simple, is to take a glass of water and drink it. Just take a moment and meditate on that and feel what it's like to take in that water. taking it in a mindful way, and allow yourself to feel the nourishment from the water. When feeling centered and having the water and drinking it slowly without hesitation, having done that, exhale deeply and say to yourself, I will hold nothing back in my effort to live. I will not hesitate to be. So just be with that for a moment.
Say that again.
I will hold nothing back in my effort to live. I will not hesitate to be. So just take a moment, and having taken in the water, notice what you notice for yourself that you do hold back on. In what ways do you hold back being your true self? In what ways do you hold back? Whether it's fear of what others might think, fear of where it may take you in your life to not hold back. Just notice what it is that you know you hold back. Your body lets you know when you hold back your truth. Take as long as you want with this. Write things down. You might find that throughout the day or the days to come that you recognize more things that you hold back in your life in an effort to not be seen fully, in an effort to not be judged in any way that's negative. And let yourself recognize all of those things. And when you're ready, make the statement, maybe in your practice, in your morning practice, in your evening practice, I will not hesitate to be. I will not hesitate to be. So reflect on that. If you were not to hesitate to be, how would you be in the world? How would you be in the world? So I offer you this practice. It's very simple. It's from the Book of Awakening. It's profound because as humans, we do hold back. We do hesitate. We do fear judgment. So this is a practice that can support you not hesitating and being and living all that you are.
To create a new consciousness means not holding back, letting go of the fear, stepping into the void, and opening up to the possibilities of how many ways Spirit wants to touch your life and bring to you the abundance. It's our fear that holds us back.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to talk about this because had I really lived a couple of things in my life, many more than a couple, but I'll speak to a couple, I would not be where I am today. And I will start with having met Vince. And we've been married for...
Come on, getting close.
You say it.
In April, it'll be 46.
That's just too long. Not really. Anyway, we've been married for many, many years. And when we met, I lived a very different life. I was a single, well, I was married, going through a divorce. And I had two small children. They were 1 and 3. And I was working at a bar restaurant that was really popular at the time, and we had live bands in the bar on the weekends, and I worked in the bar, and it was just pretty wild. And I smoked, I drank, and I met Vince in the bar. And I was going through a divorce, so I wasn't, in my relationship with my husband anymore. But I met him. He would come in there, and he would come in supposedly to dance, right? Because you like to dance.
Yes, ma'am.
And there were lots of guys that came in there. It was that kind of place, and I really, didn't pay much attention to any of them. I wasn't interested in being in a relationship, and most of them were in there to just hit on somebody and have a good time that night. And so when I met Vince, I thought, wow, I'm really attracted to him. And I didn't know anything about him. I knew that he came in and he loved to dance. But I also didn't know that he didn't drink, and he didn't drink. But he always had a drink in his hand, and it was a grapefruit juice, I think.
Grapefruit juice.
Yeah, yeah. So he would. I always thought that he had a drink in his hand. But then he started talking to me, and what I noticed about him that was different than anything I had experienced was that he actually listened. If I, talked back, he would listen, and he would ask questions, and he would share stuff with me that I was like interested in hearing about him. And to me, it was a knowing within me that I wanted to know more about him. And I was very, very interested in being around him and with him. And, again, he was a marathon runner. I didn't realize he didn't drink, he didn't smoke. He was getting his doctorate degree, and he was working for the Catholic Church. I didn't go to church. I hadn't gone to college at all. I started having kids early in life. I got married at 18. And so he was everything that I wasn't. And our lifestyles were really different, like I said. And yet the time we spent together grew, and it was obvious to me that I wanted to be with him. And I think you were pretty clear you wanted to be with me.
Yes, ma'am.
So, anyway, so it was an interesting time because I knew that I wanted to be with him, and everything else outside of me was saying it's too fast, it's too soon. You have two babies. You don't know him that well. What are you doing? You're not even out of your marriage. You're not divorced yet. And it was like my family was like, give it some time. Don't rush into anything. They didn't know Vince at all, but they didn't want me to rush into another relationship. And I just knew. I just knew that I was interested, wanted to be with him, and was going to do whatever I could to let him know that. And so it went pretty fast from there. And we became, what would you call it? We didn't date anybody else. Exclusive. That's the word. And, my friends slowly started to go away. And I remember thinking, I don't really know what I'm going to do, because all the friends that I had were partiers. And I mean, not in a bad way either, but they, just were single and partied and drank and smoked. And, I just knew I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I knew that my life was going to change because I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking, and I wanted to be with Vince, who lived a different lifestyle. So what my point in that is that there was this knowing inside of me. And I believe now, looking back, there was a recognition that I knew Vince, that I knew his soul, and that I knew him in a soul way, that we were so connected. And so, needless to say, we pursued our relationship, and we ended up getting married. And I became a runner, which is not like me, but I did become a runner and enjoyed that life with him. And same thing when we made the decision to start a practice together. I knew, and I believe you knew.
Yeah, I'll say that for me, beyond just her obvious beauty, there was a sweetness that I recognized within her. And as I invited her to participate more in my life outside of the bar and the restaurant, it was experiencing her openness, her curiosity, her sensitivity, her kindness, compassion, that there were so many attributes that she was able to share with me that drew me even closer to her and said, yes, I wanted to pursue this, pursue her.
Thank you. This.
Even in sharing, that my church community with her,
Yeah, you were very
meeting our friends, and they all loved her, and you got to know who she was. And then, of course, the kids were wonderful, and bringing her home to my parents. All of it was like, it was just a natural, easy fit.
Yes, it was. I remember when we told Vince's parents that we were going to get married, the first thing his dad said was, now I have 13 grandchildren, which meant my two were included.
Yeah.
And that was so beautiful to me.
It was.
And speaking of the church, Vince was very involved in the church, and I had not been raised with religion. I knew that there was a greater being than myself that I connected with, always knew that I was loved in that way, but I wasn't religious. And so being in the church and doing the things, we were really involved. You worked for the church.
I worked for the church, yep.
And I had not experienced community like that before. And it was a great community. I mean, so like-minded, and we did so many things that were fun and family-oriented, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And then I remember when I went to a retreat. It was called Beginning Experience, and it was a weekend for divorced, separated, and widowed Catholics. And Vince was one of the founders or leaders.
No, I was one of the leaders.
Leaders of that. And we went to this beautiful retreat center on the water, and I just remember thinking, get me out of here, because you were asked these questions and then you would write about it and meet with the small group and share. And I'm like, I don't do this. And all weekend I was like, it got better, but at first it was like, just let me go home. This isn't for me. But by the end of the weekend, I was like so open, and it was all about reflecting back on my marriage and my past relationship, and what did I need to do. They talked about the stages of grief, and there was just so much that I didn't know. And by the end of the weekend, I absolutely loved that weekend. But boy, the first part of it was like I just wanted to go home. But I remember at the end of that weekend, Vince saying to me, so when do you want to get married? And I said, I don't know. By this time I was divorced. So obviously that weekend was for you.
It was a really beautiful experience. I invited her to come not knowing how she would respond, but I know that in my first experience, in the beginning experience, I went with a sense of arrogance, saying, well, I'll take notes and bring something back to the parish. But as people shared, I couldn't take notes because they were touching my soul and helping me remember my story from my previous divorce. So I put down the notepad and really engaged, which led to a 25-year relationship with the beginning experience. But so when I invited Sandra to participate, for me, I was there and just observing. But when I saw her heart open up and her vulnerability and her presence and connection, I knew then, okay, this is something we could do. Something that I think that we have a chance here. There was so much work to be done.
Oh, there was.
But this was a beautiful moment of opening for the two of us. And that's why I asked her.
Yes, that was great. So that was an experience in my life where, the head was saying no, no, no. My heart and my intuition, which are connected to my soul, were saying yes, yes. Do not hesitate. So, needless to say, we did get married, and it was beautiful and hard, all of that combined. I thought Vince knew everything, and I gave him all this power in our relationship because he was so wise. And his wisdom wasn't always my wisdom, and hence came therapy, which was a good thing, and also me opening up to going to see someone who did readings. And I shared this before in one of my other videos of I just had this knowing that there was something about Vince and my daughter and I that was entangled, and I could not figure it out. I could not figure out how to untangle this web that was very, very difficult. And I shared with you before that my therapist had said, you might consider going to a person that she told me about and having a reading and seeing if you can get information about past lives that maybe you've had together. And oh my gosh, I thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. But I thought, what the heck, I'll go. So in that reading, I did find out about a relationship that Vince and my daughter and I had had together that we were repeating it again in this lifetime. And our agreement, I know, was to come here and complete that. And it was so helpful to know that because it was such a strong energy that it didn't make sense to me. Well, of course, it didn't make sense to me because it was something that I brought with me into this lifetime. And my Vince and my daughter agreed to be in this lifetime and finish this out. So again, just trusting that your intuition, your heart is going to guide you, and your brain is going to go, no way, no way, no way. Um, and so I wanted to speak to that because that's when I really began my journey of understanding that we have past lifetimes together, and that our soul, our body carries us, that our soul is our resonance. And I pay attention to that more than I do my head, my brain. Another aspect for me that's important to speak to in this is knowing that I wanted to be a therapist, and I knew I needed to go to school. I had not gone to college at all. And so I started school. And when it came time to do my internship, I had to take this group therapy class to finish up some of my credits. Well, the only group therapy class available that time was with Vince Horan, my husband, right? I'm like, I don't want to take a class from my husband. I just worked through all this stuff of giving him this power in my life. But I thought, well, I got to take this class so that I can get on with my internship and get going. And I was ready to start my internship. So I go into class and I sit down, and this beautiful woman comes and sits next to me. And I mean, she's probably one of the most beautiful women I'd ever seen. I just looked at her like, oh God. And Vince is in the center doing, getting everybody settled. And he gives us an icebreaker exercise. And this woman's sitting next to me. And so we're supposed to pair up, and we look at each other and, okay, let's be partners. And she and I started sharing, and he wanted us to tell each other about our lives, where we were born, and all of this. Well, what are the chances? Here we are in Tacoma, Washington, and we were both born in Casper, Wyoming, in the same hospital, different years. She's way younger than I am. But same in Casper, Wyoming. Now, I had not really met very many people from Casper, Wyoming. And so, we just clicked. We clicked so much, and we had so many things in common. I was a part of a drum and bugle corps called the Troopers. Her aunt made the uniforms for the Troopers. it was just so many things that we had in common. And we became very good friends. She's one of my dear friends still today. And we got to talking, and she said, "Why are you taking this class?" And I told her, and then I said, "And I'm getting ready to start my internship. So I'm going to be out there looking for someone that I can do my internship with." And she said, "Oh," she says, "my husband, he and some other people that he worked with at this other agency just opened up their own agency. And you might be able to do an internship with them." And I'm like, okay. So and it just felt right. It just, that the best way to explain it was like, yeah, I gotta go meet this guy. So I came home and told Vince, and I said, I'm gonna see if I can get an interview. And I did. And I set it up, and I went in to see him, and we sat down, and I said, "I'm ready to do an internship." And stop it. I know what you're thinking, but stop it. This is not to be talked about here. Um,
Lots
and
of funny
yes,
stories about that.
yeah. When I walked in and sat down with him, I know I knew him. I just knew him. And I remember him saying, I remember saying to him, "I want to do an internship. The thing is that I need to be paid for my internship." And he said, "Well, we don't pay people for internships here." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "I have to have a paid internship. There's no way that we can survive on me not having income." And he said, "Well, let me talk to the board and I'll get back to you." And so I came home, and I really liked him. I mean, I really liked him. And I know that he liked me too. And I also thought, well, I probably have a little bit of a shoe in, because Vince is very well known in the field of counseling and chemical dependency treatment, all that. And that's what Dan's agent, or my friend's agency, did. And so it was so funny, because I thought that would be my shoe in, because Vince had a pretty good reputation. So anyway, Dan called, my friend called me. I want to keep his name out of it. Oh, called me and said, "You know what?" He said, "I talked to the board, and we can do a paid internship for you, but it's only part-time." So I talked to Vince, and I was working at a bank and in an escrow company, and decided, okay, we decided I could do the internship for part-time, and then maybe work part-time at the bank. But within a month, I think it was, I was offered a full-time internship with my friend's agency. So that all worked out really well. And then one day he says, "I just have to tell you, there's one reason I thought about not bringing you on." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I do not like your husband." I'm like, "What?" I thought that was my shoe in for this job, right? And he said, "No," he said, "I think I got some things that I need to talk to him about." And he said, "So I'm going to see if he'll meet me for lunch." So you guys met for lunch, and we've been best friends all these years for what, 33, 34 years?
No, at least
No,
that.
since
Yeah.
90, since 89. Since
89.
1989, we've been best friends with them. So again, there's just the story that I'm telling you, is that there's a knowing. I knew that I knew him. I knew that I wanted to work for him. I knew that we had a deep connection, and we do. And then later, of course, I find out a couple of lifetimes that he and I've had together. One where we were brother and sister, and we were both very, very spiritual. I don't want to say too much because I've already said his name, but we fought like cats and dogs. And so today, when we're together, oh my gosh, we just banter back and forth and back and forth. And it's all in sweetness and kindness. And I love him dearly. I think of him as a brother, and we were a brother sister in another lifetime. So it's just that knowing. I felt called to connect with him in this lifetime. And it was through Vince teaching this class and me sitting next to his wife and becoming connected that way. Synchronicities, that's what it was all about. And that was the beginning of my career as a therapist. So I wanted to speak to that because had I denied any of those intuitions, and our intuition is our divine consciousness speaking to us and through us. If I had not listened to my intuition in those situations, I wouldn't be where I am today. Now, I wouldn't be in a bad place because there's no wrong way of being in the world. I'm just so grateful that I did listen to those. And it wasn't something that I thought that I could deny. I probably could have, but I wasn't mind altering at that point or anything. So it was just that strong pull and that strong knowing this is meant to be in those situations.
It was your leap of faith
And faith.
beyond what your family or your mind was telling you, trusting your heart because of soul recognition.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And then finding, out about past lives, my past lives with my friend, past lives that my husband and my daughter and I have had. It helped give me a perspective that I could use as a frame of reference for myself in this lifetime. That made sense when I had tried so many other ways to understand things. So I offer you that to be open, to know that we have many lifetimes. And when we have that soul recognition of someone, just like I shared with you about Russell, I knew Russell from another lifetime. And, it's pay attention and don't hold back. Don't hold back. That would be what I would offer for you today. Do you have any more that you want to say?
I would add to this part of that recognition. You've heard of the old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that what I believe that means is that we are connected as soul families. That if you believe in reincarnation, we reincarnate as group souls. Even though as human beings we don't know or recognize, we may be born all over the place in different parts of the world or the country, but there's a way that we have an affinity to be drawn together. And when we have that openness and willingness, we have that recognition. Like, how many of you have ever met somebody who was a complete stranger to you, but you had this infinity, like, I'm really attracted to that person, not just physically attracted, but just to hear them speak or watching them do something they do, a gift that they share. There's an affinity of connection, which to me is intuition saying, yeah, there's a familiarity.
Yeah, and they're reflecting to you, a part of you.
They're reflecting to us, a part of us. And that if the opportunity presents itself, then you have the free will and the choice to say, do I follow my intuition and allow myself to be curious? Be curious and explore. Or do I follow my head and say, well, that's weird, that's interesting, but I don't know these people and I don't want to get involved. So, trust your heart.
Yeah.
Your heart knows the truth. Your heart won't hesitate to show you. It's only your head that tries to talk you out of it. It gives you lots of reasons to maybe avoid or neglect. How many times have you had inspirations or intuitions, insights about people or opportunities or activities that would connect you with other like-minded people, but then your brain talks you out of it. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't do that. It's too much. I don't want to do that. I don't know these people. Instead of allowing yourself to say, I want to explore. I want to be open. If you have the confidence that you can explore, and if it doesn't work, you can say, well, I'm glad I explored it, but that doesn't fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes courage and confidence and self-worth to be willing to explore and then to trust your own inner knowing whether it works or it doesn't work for you. So many of us live in a world of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And in that world of fear, our mind doesn't want to take the risks and tells us all the reasons why this probably won't be a good fit. So you have a choice. What do you listen to? Do you listen to your fear? Do you listen to your intuition?
Mm-hmm.
I hope you choose intuition.
Yeah, and I think that will be something that I'll bring next time when I do YouTube. Maybe both of us will be doing it, but I think that's a good thing, a good topic of what's the difference between intuition and hypervigilance or paranoia. Um, our intuition comes from a very different place within us, and sometimes it's hard to know the difference. So Gary Zukov wrote a great piece on the difference between intuition and hypervigilance. So I'll bring that up next time because it's very helpful. And I think remembering that your intuition is your divine consciousness speaking to you. And your intuition is so connected to your heart. Your heart is connected to your spirit, and your spirit is connected to your soul. And there's no fear. There's no fear when you're coming from a place of intuition. So I will bring that next time. And yeah, I think that that's a good piece. So I'm glad you spoke
And
to
when you
that.
hear, we're made in the likeness of image of God or the creative source or whatever you want to call it. It is your soul that is a part of God. It's a reflection of the source of all that is. You have that resource inside of you. It's knowing how to connect to it. To me, that's a significant part of our human journey, to remember who we really are.
Yep, for sure. So I want to go back to the water that you drank or the water that you might drink. Find something you like to drink out of, put water in it, meditate on that glass of water, and take time to drink the water. And when you're done drinking the water slowly, without hesitation, drinking the whole thing, ask yourself what you're holding back and what you need to stop holding back as a way to live and not hesitate to be. So thank you. Thank you for all being there.
Much love to you.